some coffee, dude.
Oh, dude, go get your coffee. I'll talk to Ken.
Restarted. I was just eating real quick. I need to like flush my mouth out.
This is the high quality pod that you were coming.
Oh yeah, no
Yeah, it's
worries.
the anti like glossy version on purpose, right, Cole?
It's gritty. We love it.
I just
Those
need
are
a
the
little
best
bit of coffee.
podcasts when it's just off the cuff and not
Totally.
too professional.
I get on here though, Cole makes me fucking self-conscious about my teeth because his teeth are so white.
Dude.
Mine
Look at
also
Kevin's.
not white. Cole's
Kevin's
probably
are way
using
water.
it's every twice a day, so we're worth it.
As I drink coffee and like
I'm
make them.
drinking some coffee too.
How do you keep them so white?
I think that's just good genetics, bro. I don't know.
No
I think it's
bullshit. You have fucking do teeth whitening, don't you?
dude, I promise I don't.
You do
Really?
for sure. 100%.
I mean, occasionally I will do a whitening strip, but I haven't done a whitening strip.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just my mouth pH is just, I don't know.
My mouth pH is okay.
Maybe we kept that one out and you can restart it after that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, I'm ready.
All right. Well, Kevin Vermaerke, welcome to the podcast. My brother-in-law, soon to be. Thanks for coming on, bro.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, why don't we tell the folks about your history and how you guys met and who who connected you and all that.
Yeah. Well, so I guess this goes back all the way to 2020, COVID year. The racing scene in Europe was pretty dim. So a bunch of the guys that were supposed to be over there were just doing a training camp in like Thousand Oaks, California, so SoCal, where the training's really nice, the weather's good, and I'm pretty sure it was like November, maybe it was November 2020, right, Kev?
Yeah, around then.
And so hey, Kevin, Quinn Simmons, Colby Simmons, and then a few other guys were all out there sharing an apartment, training the house down. And we got on a group ride together, and I met Kevin, and he was wearing his action kit, and I was all enamored at the fact that there was an action guy on the group ride, and I was trying to figure out a way I could get on this team. So
Keep in mind, I mean, now Cole's, I don't know, 6'5", but at the time he was probably like shorter than me, 5'10" or something. And like he was half the size that he is now. So not quite, yeah, a little bit of a different figure than he is now, but, yeah, he's a super small kid. I met him on the group ride and he was stoked. Yeah, he was just stoked on riding.
Was he asking you like a ton of questions? Like, what do you eat for breakfast, Kevin?
No, actually, I think we have to call out to him, and it was Kyle Croner.
yeah, Kyle Cromie, yeah.
They joined the group ride like after they were waiting at like where the group ride splits, like at the top of the climb where everyone like hammers up. Technically, they cheated on this group ride, but we'll let
Yeah,
that one.
we definitely cheated on the group ride. We met the group like halfway up this decisive climb. It's like a 8-minute climb maybe, and we were like halfway up, and the group was already split, and I got on the back of Kevin and was struggling to hold on for the last 4 minutes of this climb, and then it was he, Kyle, and I just thought this was so cool. I was like, dude, I'm riding with Kevin Vermaerke. This is awesome. And yeah, he obviously dusted us in the sprint. And then yeah, I can't really remember if we talked about anything too substantial. I think I was and then maybe that night or the day after, I invited them to come over to my place. And I don't know if I should say this, maybe I'll cut this out, but everybody was everybody was underage, and one of my best friends at the time had a fake ID, and so I was able to get all the guys a couple drinks, so they all came over to our place, and we had a nice evening playing some basketball, chilling in the hot tub, jumping in the pool, and just had a nice evening together. And I thought Kevin was a really nice guy. I don't know for any particular reason he stood out to me, but he wasn't an ass, and he wasn't like a douche or anything. So I was like, okay, this guy's pretty cool. He's obviously a really good rider. So I told my sister that he was into her, even though he didn't know that even though he didn't know I had a sister. And then yeah, how did it go from there, Kev?
Okay, so we did this group ride, and then I think we we stopped at our local cafe in Thousand Oaks that we'd always go to. And then that was it. Like there was quite a few people there. So I didn't even like, that was the first time we had met, whatever. And then a few nights later, we went over to his house because, I was there with a group of friends and there was no racing and Cole's 2 years younger than us, but he was like, yeah, I can get you guys hooked up with some drinks and all this, the plug. And, yeah, so then we went over to, his house for an evening. And then, there's still like a pretty big group of us and that was it really. And then I went to, my grandparents' house for Thanksgiving and like 2 weeks passed. And then I got a DM on Instagram from Cole and he was like, hey, my sister's home from college for Thanksgiving. And like I was showing her these selfies we took on the group ride and she thought you were super cute. And like, if you're coming back into Thousand Oaks, you should go on a date with her. And I was just like, oh, damn, that's true. Yeah, this is crazy.
Wow,
I'm from, we'd met
dude.
twice. And I was like, what do you say to that? All I could
Yeah,
see was like when we'd met the first time, I didn't even know he had a sister. And then, you can just see like the little profile picture on Instagram. And I was planning to go back up anyway. So I was like, what the heck? It'll help an evening go by. And then, yeah, we went on one date and that was it. And Cole introduced me after that group ride. So I definitely.
and now you're about to marry Cole's sister.
Yeah, so that was gonna be or that was 6 years ago, this November, and we're getting married on November 7th. So yeah, like I mean, the time flies. It's crazy to say that was 6 years ago, but
Yeah.
yeah, a lot has changed since then. From going from someone I didn't even know in a group ride to a brother-in-law. It's pretty crazy.
That's actually a really cool story. Like Cole, I mean, it sounds crazy. You're just kind of like, I'm going to set these two up, but you had a vision and
Yeah, in the back of my mind, it was a narcissistic vision to try and get on action.
yeah.
I was
Well,
like, maybe if this guy ends up liking my sister, he'll put in a good word to Axel, and I'll get on this team.
To be fair, I did put in a good word to Axel for you, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
tried. I'm trying to pay off my debt to you.
No, you definitely held up your end of the boat. Yeah, but then,
that's cool.
so I guess let's start at your U23 career. It was short, obviously, because you had a good first year. You won under 23 Liège. Was that kind of unexpected? Did you expect to come out firing that year and be the best?
Honestly, I had no idea what to expect coming out of juniors because I joined Action, which at the time was the top under 23 team, especially for Americans. But in the world, I mean, we had guys like that I'm teammates now with, but Mikkel Bjerg, João Almeida, these guys were TT world champ, baby Giro champion. And the level of guys on the team was just super high. And I came in as an 18-year-old and was just like, kind of starstruck to be on the same team as these guys. And I mean, keep in mind that Remco and I are the same age. So this was the year he had gone straight to Quick Step, but that was like nobody that was, completely out of the blue. No one was doing that, or there was no talk of other guys going straight from juniors to pros. And if you were a good junior, that I mean, like FDJ, I think was the first team coming along with an under 23 team, like directly affiliated with the World Tour team. And DSM or Sunweb also had one, but it wasn't that popular yet. So it was kind of these privateer teams like Action. Stag was a big one, a Dutch team that were the top teams for under 23 guys. And I was lucky enough to get on Action based on my junior results, me and Sean Quinn. Um, and yeah, like I said, we showed up at this first team camp and there are these 21, 22-year-old guys that were world champions, winning the biggest under 23 races. And that it kind of just seemed normal, like you go to a team camp and you hang out with them and you do what they're doing, you train with them, you eat with them. And when you go to your first race of the season, it's kind of that environment is what you're expecting. I think my first race I did was Redlands, kind of halfway step to Europe, a good ego boost before you go actually start the real racing in Europe. I won a stage there, was second on GC, and then went straight to Europe for the first time. And we actually started with a pro race called Kopi Bartley. So I think that really helped me going into Liège because I did a pro race and then my first under 23 race. This was also Kopi Bartley was a pretty strong field that year. I mean, Froome was there, Bernal was there, and I was still like I just turned 18 at the time, so I was kind of like just amazed that I was even in the race. But I think that helped me in Liège because I was like 30th on GC and Kopi Bartley, but the level was pretty high, and then going from that to an under 23 race, even though I was a super young under 23, it kind of just you know I was expecting the level to be higher than it was. I think so that was a big help.
So you won the under 23 Liège at 18 years old?
Yeah. I think there maybe was one guy younger than me, but it was my first under 23 race.
Wow, I didn't
It
know
was,
that. That's a big deal.
yeah. So it was really, this was beginning of April and it was kind of, like I said, my first 2023 race and I won it. So it was straight off the bat. It was kind of like, oh, wow, this is, you know, kind of set my expectations for the rest of the year.
So I'm kind of connecting the dots here. Was that team camp you're talking about? Was that in Healdsburg?
No, that was my second year. So the first year was
Oh,
in
okay.
Bentonville, Arkansas. And then the second year, like right before COVID, we were in Healdsburg.
I think I rode with you guys 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, I do remember that. So
Yeah,
definitely, I think maybe a couple days I
yeah.
met you there. But that was my second year on the team. Yeah. 2020. Yeah.
I remember we went and did Cole. We went and did a ride over the geysers, and I think we did like a individual time trial up that last steep pitch.
Yeah. We
Is
did
that
our
right?
20-minute test there. I remember.
Yeah, yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
Wow.
Cole now knows he knows that climb now.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal.
It's a tough one, but the ride, I mean, that was the only time I'd ridden up there. And, I remember the weather was pretty bad that week, but in February, but the roads and the climbs up there were incredible.
Way better than Malibu, right?
No, I disagree on that one. I got to vouch for Malibu. Malibu is just, it's got the weather. Roads are
It's got
better
the
in my
weather.
opinion. And
Ooh,
it's just,
I
it's
don't know
just,
about that.
you can't beat it. You can't beat it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kevin. No,
Man, I'm
but
getting
that's
ganged up on here.
at some point, Kev, if you're ever around, I know it's difficult with our schedules, but maybe after, well, yeah, if you do the Ardennes, then it's hard to be there for Levi's Grand Fonda. But if you're ever home, Levi's Grand Fonda is so fun, man. It was so
Yeah,
cool.
nice little chunk of change for you to go win. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know. It's the incentive is appealing. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to prioritize it.
So yeah, that win obviously put you on the map, Kevin, right? To all the World Tour teams. I assume shortly thereafter, Joao, your agent, was talking to many teams, right?
Yeah, it did. It happened pretty quick because so before Liège, I had already signed with my agents that I've been with ever since. But, um, it was kind of within a span of a few weeks. I was doing Redlands, then Kopi Bartley, and my results in those two races had already attracted a few agents. So I was talking to agents and trying to figure out, what I wanted to do or what was a smart decision. And um, I I met up with the agents I have now, Ken and Joao, from Corso, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made for my career because having their guidance through under 23s to pros and just through my career um, made a big difference for me, and even just a relationship. Like they'll be at my wedding, and um, being that close and having that kind of friendship with a mentor was super important for me. um, and then, I signed with them and a couple weeks later I won Liège and then was getting more and more interest from World Tour teams. But, you know, Jarl just told me like, don't worry about any of that for now. Just keep focus on the rest of the season, keep doing your thing in the races. And then towards the end of the season, we'll kind of talk about what the different options are. And, you know, that kind of just gave me some confidence that there was interest in me. And like I said earlier, I was still a first year under 23. To go world tour even after your first year under 23 was pretty unheard of. Usually I would really recommend it to me that, I spend at least 2 years under 23 just to develop and, mature physically and mentally. And, yeah, so I had that first season where I got some more good results and, kind of a racing calendar with action that was half professional races, half under 23 races. I went to my first under 23 worlds. I did tour of Utah, which was super cool. And then towards the end of the year, as things were wrapping up, you know, I kind of made a list with my agent of the different teams I was interested that I wanted to go to. you know, from that list, we narrowed it down to which ones were interested in me. And then the next step was going to some training camps in December and January with Sunweb and then Quickstep were the two that I went to. So that was a really good feel for me after my first year under 23 to see how the pro teams worked, meet, the management, the riders, see what a pro team is like. And kind of get a feel for the atmosphere in each team. I went to the Sunweb camp in December and went back home for Christmas and then went to the Quick Step camp in January. And, they were two very different teams, but just from the first day at the Sunweb camp, I got a good vibe from the team and they had a full 3-year plan for me already, like as a stagiaire at the December camp, which was pretty, for me, I was just like amazed that I was there as a stagiaire. And then, I sat down with Ewan, who is a team owner, and he said, we want to sign you for 3 years. And in your second year, go to your grand tour and develop you into this and give you some time to grow and not put any pressure on you to get results right away. Uh, And, when you're 18 being told this by a world tour team, you would just sign the paper if he puts it in front of you for no money. It just sounds like the dream job. So, yeah, that was pretty surreal to, have that experience. And then in the end, after I went to the Quick Step camp, I said, I liked the Sunweb camp better, and I think I could see myself on that team. By the end of February, I had signed a 3-year contract already. So this, I was super lucky because this was before anything started in any training camps, racing, and this was obviously 2020. So this was a COVID year. And about 3 weeks later, COVID shut down everything. The season was canceled, and I had this contract in my back pocket already, which in hindsight, you know, gave me a lot of security that year. But also, I have a lot of teammates and friends who probably would have gotten contracts if they had been able to race or show themselves that year, but they just never got that opportunity. And some guys, even when racing came back the next year, that aged out of the category or they're just, they missed that opportunity. I'm pretty grateful that I had signed that contract already before the season started.
Now, by then, Kev, had you already broken your pelvis when at the Baby Giro?
No, that was at the end. That was August of 2020. So this was all in the beginning of 2020. And then, yeah, we had done this team camp in Healdsburg and I'd flew to Europe, landed at night, woke up and, 10 missed calls from my sport director and my parents and Axel. And like Trump had done the national address, like, we're going to close the borders because of COVID. It really went like, it was how we knew about this virus and stuff, but it wasn't like, oh, there's going to be travel limitations or races will be canceled. And then overnight, it just completely flipped. I woke up, booked the flight home, and I literally was in Europe less than 24 hours and I flew back and everything was canceled for the whole year. So, that was pretty surreal. And we came back home and then I was just in the US until July. Like Colin mentioned, we did a lot of training at Thousand Oaks area, Malibu, because one of the main sponsors for the junior team I was on, Lux, Greg Anzalone exactly. Cole's got the mug there. He had an apartment for his business in the area, and he allowed alumni and ex-riders for Lux to come train and everything. And I have to say, COVID was the best year of my life. Like, I'd signed this contract. In the end of the year, I met Rindy, and for most of the year, it was just a training camp, with my best friends. Like we were training the house down. Weather was good in Malibu. You know, we were just going to Joy Cafe every day after the ride, and no worries as a 19-year-old. Uh, so yeah, COVID was a pretty nice year for me. Yeah, finally racing did start again at the end of July, and I went back over for the baby Giro, and then that's when I broke my pelvis in the first race back. So it was an extra short year, even with COVID. But luckily, I didn't need a surgery or anything for that break. Although it was a little bit scary because when I was in the hospital, there were two of us from the same crash, and this was a super small town in Italy. I didn't speak any Italian. No one there spoke any English, and this kid's parents arrived, the day after we crashed. We had to spend the night in the hospital, and the doctor was using Google Translate to like explain to me what was wrong with me. And he said, you broke your pelvis. We're going to need to operate on it, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I'm already far away from my family and my friends and stuff, but this is during COVID. So no one can come in the hospital. And, yeah, I just was like, well, I'm laying in this bed. I can't move. I'm going to have to get surgery. I don't know who, where, or when. And, the next day, this kid's parents come from Italy because he's Italian. And suddenly his mom is just going like ballistic with the doctor in Italian. And I'm just sitting there, can't understand anything. And it turns out they'd mixed up our x-rays. So he was the one he also broke his pelvis, but he's the one that needed the surgery. And it was a break that was stable. So I just needed to rest for 4 or 5 weeks.
Whoa,
So you can imagine when that Google Translate came through, I was pretty stoked.
Yeah.
cow,
Yeah.
Dude, that's
dude.
nightmare fuel. Imagine they had
Where
operated on you.
where in Italy was that? South, north?
This was like right in the middle, Urbino. So I don't know if you've done Tirreno, but it's like
Yeah.
Rimini, Riccione area. It's just a little bit inland in the middle.
Gioni.
I only say that because, like, there's a big difference between northern Italy and southern Italy, and
Yeah.
I was
No,
I
it's
was kind of guessing you were like mid to south for something
Yeah.
like that to
The
happen.
more south you go, the more grim it gets.
Yeah.
yeah. There's nothing good in the south.
Have you ever been to Naples or Sicily?
Yep. I did Giro de Sicilia in my first year pro as my last race of the season, and I crashed with no gloves and just tore all my hands off. And that I can tell you that already the morale was not high to start this race. And, as soon as I had no skin on my hands, that was it for me. I was done.
Do you
I
uh,
didn't
do you
think
ever
for that.
race no gloves these days, or did you learn your lesson?
Nope. I don't. Only like last time of the day, if I'm in the front
Yeah.
selection or something, I'll take the gloves off. But
Yeah.
I've learned, I hate how it looks. It looks so dorky, and even just how it feels. I hate the feeling of it, but I've learned my lesson one too many times to
Yeah.
go no gloves.
Do you guys have on UAE now? Do you guys have any gloves that are just like you have no padding? It's just one thin
Yeah,
layer
we
of fabric.
finally do now. So that makes a big difference because
So
on
much
my
better.
old team, our gloves had like a quarter, it's like a baseball mitt. And then he came and like, it just is like, feels
Feels
so
completely
bad.
different. This is why I
Yeah.
don't race with gloves. Because if you can't get these nice gloves that have just like a thin layer of fabric, it completely changes how it feels on the bike.
Yeah. No, it makes a big difference having super thin ones that are, yeah, least invasive as possible.
So
Yeah,
if you
but
make
then if you crash, do they do anything?
They do something. Yeah. It's still like
Okay.
not leather, but I don't know. It's thick enough that at least there's one layer that
Yeah.
that won't come off.
I
It's not
mean
just lycra.
to
Yeah.
that to that same argument, I mean our lycra on our pants and our jerseys is so thin. If you crash, does it do anything? I mean, it's got to do something, right? That initial contact is you got
Yeah,
something.
but dude, if you crash on your palms, you can't continue.
Yeah, it's true.
Like
We
you can
Riley
crash
or
on your hip or your elbow and you can like still race, but if you rip the skin off your palms, dude, you're done.
yeah.
And forget about the race, just cooking, like
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
doing, I mean, going to the bathroom, doing anything
Yeah.
for weeks is just miserable.
Yeah.
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 So you spent 5 years on DSM. That's pretty rare for a rider, especially in like today's day and age, to spend half a decade on the same team. How did that kind of form you into who you are today? Because that's a long period of your life.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long period, and I initially had signed a 3-year contract, and then a couple months into my second year on the team, I extended for 2 more years. So I was kinda locked into that 5 years pretty early. Um, but, I have to say, like, the time goes by really fast. It doesn't feel like it was 5 years, and especially, um, my first year pro was not great. I struggled just to feel comfortable being in Europe. Like, that was the first time I really, um, came over to Europe for, like, maybe 7 or 8 months of the year. I came over to Girona and I had to find an apartment, get insurance, get my, like, national ID card, get Wi-Fi set up, a phone plan, all this stuff that you don't even think about until you're on the ground almost, and then you're like, "Oh, this is actually, I don't speak Spanish or Catalan, and, I'm trying to train. I have to train 5 hours, and then I have to go to Movistar and try and figure out my Wi-Fi, and then go to the post office and get my Wi-Fi set up." But, it's just like the language barriers is a pain to deal with. And the first couple months were definitely a lot of non-cycling things, trying to get that organized that I haven't really anticipated. Um, but, the good thing about DSM was that they really, and this was part of that 3-year plan that we had talked about when I signed the contract, is that they really didn't put any pressure on me to perform right away, which in hindsight, I actually I think it would have been more beneficial for me if there was a bit more pressure. Um, but at the same time, I got to do some pretty big races and get experience with a lot of other guys that were neo pros or my age who weren't getting it. So I think it's a fine balance between, you know, expecting yourself and having external pressure to perform already from your neo pro year, but at the same time, having a more long term view of developing and getting a few years under your belt and not, you know, obviously now there's so many young guys that are doing well right away, but that wasn't necessarily the case when I was a neo pro. Um, so just always having the confidence in yourself to say, I'm going to do this at my own pace, and having that longer contract also gave me the opportunity to talk to the team and say, this is what I want to achieve next year and the following year, and have some leadership in races where, DSM wasn't the most stacked team in terms of roster. So that was part of the reason why I was doing these big races really early, and also having some leadership opportunities in them. So, yeah, I think, in hindsight, I wouldn't have changed anything in terms of my first 5 years and where I turned pro and how it all went down. Cycling is a sport where you really can't control much, but I think everything kind of happened for a reason for me. And yeah, now I've kind of moved into that next phase of my career. But I definitely look back on the 5 years with some fond memories.
I just gotta say, like, in my day, like, everyone had a 1-year contract. I mean, you had to be an established veteran with like a good resume to get 2 or I mean, very few guys had more than 2 years. Like it was sink or swim right from the get-go. I mean, it's crazy to hear the difference. Like it makes way more sense to give someone a 3-year runway because
Yeah,
it was just like dog eat dog, 1 year at a
yeah.
time.
I mean, I don't know how you experienced that, but it just being on a, I mean, it's like I said, cycling is a sport where you're crashing, you're getting sick, and if every year you have that pressure on your shoulders to, the future isn't secure, and you have to get a contract, and every race could be your last, and it's yeah. I think the teams probably also realize that, and that's maybe why the long term contracts came into play. Is just giving the rider more security probably leads to better performances too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think in my day they were just like it was all dictated by budget and money. You know, if you were if you had a great year, your salary go up, and if you had a bad year, it'd go way down. Like it was just volatile.
Yeah,
And Kev, not many riders, their first Grand Tour is the Tour de France, and then on top of that, the disappointment of crashing out and breaking your collarbone at your first Grand Tour, first Tour de France. Take me through what was going through your head making the Tour de France start and being there in Denmark and then crashing out on stage 8.
Yeah, it was pretty surreal because I did my first tour in my second year pro, so I was only 20 years old. It was my
This is
second year pro,
2021, 22.
22,
Okay.
and already in the December camp when you talk with the team in training camp about potential schedules and long lists, I knew I was on the long list for the tour, and I had a few good results to start the season, and then by by the time the Dauphiné came around, it was pretty, I was pretty sure I was going to make the team, but they said to me like, basically you have to have a really good Dauphiné to like secure your spot on the team. The second day I got on the early break and we made it to the line and I was fourth in that breakaway. And then I wore the white jersey for a few days and then I wore the green jersey. Um, got in a few more breakaways and I kind of just proved to the team that my level was pretty good. And a few days after the Dauphiné ended, they called me and said I was going to the tour. And this is Dauphiné is early mid-June, so this is only like 2 weeks before the tour starts. Um, and that was, I mean, going to the tour is insane. I mean, it's as you guys know, if you're an American, anyone you tell you're a pro cyclist, they just say, "Oh, have you done the Tour de France?" Or, "Do you go to the tour?" Like, that's all they know. So even just for me and, with a lot of my friends back home and family, even, it was kind of like a validation of being able to say like, yeah, actually I have gone to the Tour de France, and just the excitement around the race is like, I was getting messages from people I went to elementary school with and like previous teachers and stuff that I hadn't even talked to in a year, and they had seen on NBC, like the list of Americans at the tour, and they saw my name, and they like, hadn't even followed me in cycling or anything for a couple years, but they just, they saw the Tour de France somewhere on TV or in the newspaper, and they saw my name. So that was kind of, you know, a realization to me that, wow, like, the tour really is a pretty big race. I mean, I'd done monuments already and races that were big personally and within the sport, but just realizing what a spectacle the tour actually was pretty cool. And yeah, Copenhagen was one of the most, I mean, the two tours I did were Copenhagen and Bilbao, San Sebastian Grand Departs, and Copenhagen was for sure the most amount of people. I mean, it was ridiculous. Um, but being able to, I was there. Rindy came; she was there for the first 3 days, and just soaking in like the team presentation and even just the first day is a sprint day, and there's just fans for 200K along the road, and it's kind of, yeah, like, wow, this is what I watched on the TV as a kid, and you just see the peloton in July rolling through the sunflower fields and all those stereotypical like Tour de France images. It's almost like, obviously you're there to race, but there's also a part of you that's like, wow, I need to just soak this in for a second because it just the experience is something pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's
That's
cool.
that's awesome. And then, yeah, disaster struck. That's kind of a refocus point, definitely a low. And then, you focus on recovery and stuff, and then you come back and it's it's like it all happens again, right? At Breton.
Yeah, so the first tour didn't end well for me because on stage 8, I was, yeah, it was the first day. My parents had just flown over from the US to watch the second week. The race had actually been going pretty well for me. Like, I hadn't made it in any breakaways or anything yet, but I was riding at a pretty good level, and even just my positioning and everything in the bunch had given me a lot of confidence because, I mean, Levi, like the Tour de France is, like a sprint stage on the tour is a little pretty hectic. And especially the first year I did it, after we got back from Copenhagen, the stages were like Denmark to Lille, all these northern France, Normandy, just places that when you like climbing, you don't want to be riding a bike, and especially not in the Tour de France. Yeah, you
I
have,
used to I used to tell people that I felt like those stages, especially in the last like, whatever 30K, it felt like it kind of took some years off my life.
yeah,
So
for
stressful.
it's crazy because you have, I mean, the thing is, like in a race like Roubaix, you have everyone's there for Roubaix, but when you're there for the tour, and there was a Roubaix stage this first week. I think I think we did most of the sectors after Arenberg, um, but not Carrefour de l'Arbre. Anyway, you know, the difference in the tour is that you have guys that are there for the Roubaix stage, like classics guys, but then you have GC guys who have no business being on cobbles, but their entire race depends on not losing time. So you just have this mad like rush of everyone trying to be in position and guys that know they're not good at cobbles trying to be in position and not lose time. And it's just like, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. It's so dangerous.
Yeah,
And you just like, you have no choice but to just risk it, because you have to
yeah,
be there.
yeah.
Levi, did you ever do any cobble stages in the tour?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah?
2 or 3 times.
Were you up there battling for position at the front?
Yeah, my first cobbled stage. I got to dig it up. I've got a great photo where I'm like in third position on the cobbles behind Robbie McEwen and I don't know, it was like Tom Bonin or something. I
Oh,
was so proud of that photo.
it's cool.
And we
No,
That's
came
the
to the
thing. That's so
finish.
epic that you have that photo.
Yeah, I got to dig it
that's
up.
pretty bad.
Robbie's in the green jersey. Yeah, I'm on Rabobank.
That's
Yeah,
That
cool.
you
that
gotta tell
th-
people that's from Roubaix.
yeah. Oh, hell no. That's a different sport altogether. I never did Roubaix.
How'd you
That's
how'd
like
you end up doing on that stage, on the couple stage?
pretty well. Like I think we came to the line with maybe 40 dudes and I think I might have got top 20. Like I mean, yeah, out of 40 that's not a big deal, but like
Well,
after you
at
go
least
through like 6 sectors or something and there's 40 guys left and you're still there.
feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when your first tour you're just so amped and like Kevin said you risk it and you haven't seen enough bad shit happen that it's not playing in your head yet. As the older you get, I think that happens more and more. Like you just see the potential danger in everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it worked out.
And it
Um,
also, I mean, a grand tour is different than a 1-day race or even a 1-week race where like your family and friends, obviously it's not like it's a big enough race that a lot of them are going to make the trip that they wouldn't usually make over to Europe to watch your race and, tour the Basque country or something. But it's also a 3-week race and, they're trying to make plans for Paris and you have to
Mhm.
race for 3 weeks and not crash, not get sick, stay in the race. And it's a lot of pressure to, try and just survive because it's
Yeah.
not easy to finish a grand tour.
And
And
that
I learned,
feeling like when you say you broke your collarbone, like I've been there, I've crashed out of 2 tours. That feeling of like you're in the biggest thing in the world one day and the next day you're just cast aside. Like it's hard.
yeah,
You're watching it on TV the next day and it's actually really heartbreaking.
no, it's brutal. I mean, you know it super well, like that feeling of just you're in the race, a split second crash, you broke your collarbone, and within 30 minutes you're in an ambulance in a hospital in the middle of France, and it's just dead quiet, and you're thinking like, man, what happened? I was in the tour like at like the highlight of my career, one of the highlights of my
Yeah.
life, like all this adrenaline and excitement, and then you don't have your phone on you, so you can't call anyone, and you're just like have a couple hours to just contemplate life when you're sitting in that hospital room, and it's pretty depressing, I have
Traumatizing.
to say. Yeah,
Yeah, it's super depressing.
good
yeah,
question though for you, Levi. Through your career, I'm sure you've had many of those. You're at a high and then immediately in a big trough. Did you find any like ways throughout your career to kind of not cope with that, but shift your mindset and be able to withstand that better? Because that can be devastating to you, like personally for a long time. Like if you don't know if you're gonna ever be back at the tour in that moment, and you could spiral really bad, and that can happen a lot in your career, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I realize now more than in the moment, like how hard it was. It's like Kevin said, super depressing. I would say it's actually traumatizing. It's because you're like living your lifelong dream one minute, and it's the excitement and the energy is so big, and then you're just like cast aside, and you're in the hospital or whatever it is. It's such a contrast. But
Yeah,
I think the one good thing is like yeah, it might not be the Tour de France, but there's another race coming, and you just have to look forward to the next race.
yeah.
You don't have a choice.
So just shifting your goals quickly and
Yeah,
just
Just
thinking for the
move
future.
forward for sure.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good tidbit.
After that first tour, I broke my collarbone immediately in my next race again. So then I was double depressed.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And I just called it quits for the year that time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Boy,
I
yeah.
that
remember
can
that.
really play with your head though. You're like, man, am I cut out for this? Or I'm sure you thought about stuff like that, you know? That's harsh.
I mean, the thing about cycling would be just do all this training and all this mental preparation for one moment, and then in the blink of an eye, like even if you just get a flat, and you flat right before a key sector, and you watch the race disappear, and it's just like, well, there's a whole altitude camp and 4 months of work down the drain in less than a minute. It's pretty
Yeah.
can flip on a dime for sure.
That's honestly what I think is really special about some of the riders who do well at Roubaix, because, like, watching them, like, you're in the race and everything's going perfect for me, for the most part. Like, I'm not a top rider by any means, so I'm just happy that I'm, like, in the bunch, like, making it through these sectors, and I see, like, guys like Mads, guys like Wow, these guys are flatting in, like, crucial moments of the race, and then you just see them flying back, and for them to have this, like, mental fortitude to not, like, get down on themselves in the moment and be like, race is over, and for them to just keep battling back time after time is really impressive, and it's it shows you their character and, like, who they
Yeah.
are as a person.
Like,
It's impressive.
especially this year, Vanderpool, he's walking backwards on Arenberg. Like, I'm watching, I'm like, oh, he's done.
Yeah,
Like you could, I thought like watching him walk, he's like, oh, he's giving up. And he did not give up. That was really impressive.
yeah. That's something that I admire a lot about those riders,
Yeah.
classics riders, is their grit, that they never give up.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a lot of it just comes down to confidence. I mean, Levi, I'm sure you can like I'm sure some of your best performances were like the best results you had. Like when you're confident, like your shape's good, you're one of the best riders there, you can be in the front. Like even when shit hits the fan, you just kind of have this, you're like, it doesn't matter, I deserve it, I deserve to be there. And just that kind of, I don't know, willpower to keep going because I mean, like take Roubaix, for example, if there's 200 guys that start the race, like there's those five, like Mads, Tade, Wow, MVDP, like they know they can win the race. A lot of other guys are just happy to get a top 10, but
Yeah.
those few guys, like even if they flat or they crash, like they just have that winning mentality to just keep coming back that a lot of other guys don't have, I feel like.
yeah. All right, Kev, your best result of your career, I would say. I mean, you've had some amazing career highlights. Top 3 at Arctic Race, twice on the GC. You've what, top 3 at Norway. Hey, these are don't laugh and smile,
Big,
and
big world tour race, Arctic race, Norway, if anyone hasn't heard about it.
these are pro races, dude.
Yeah.
It's dude, I know this.
There's no easy race.
No,
There's no
no.
easy race.
And especially a dot pro. I mean, that's one level down from a world tour race. It doesn't get much bigger than that, you know. And especially some of these big races where there's high level guys there. Podium GC, getting close to winning some stages. I mean, that's something to not be ashamed of. But then you in 24, if I'm not mistaken, you ran 4th at Classica San Sebastian, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Was that
That
was that something? I know that definitely fueled you. I remember talking to
That's
you after that
that, by
race,
the way,
and
that's a beautiful race. Like, I love the Jazz Cabell. So cool.
it's yeah, one of my favorite races. Like just the course. Usually the weather's good, but like the way the course is designed, I think for like a kind of climber classics type rider, it's everyone loves that race.
that that ride that you did there, that definitely fueled your ambition for the rest of that year and the years to come, right?
Yeah, I think for me it was just that like world tour confirmation of like, you know, okay, I've known for years that I can do this, but you at some point you need that in race experience of, you know, actually being on the climb and looking back and seeing like the best riders in the world getting dropped and then being like, okay, I know I can do it now, no matter what. Even when I go home and I'm training again, like you kind of just have that confirmation to yourself that, I'm good enough to be in the front of these races. So yeah, for me, that was definitely a breakthrough race, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you were there, right? The guys in front of you were Alaphilippe, Hershey. and one other guy, right? I mean, those are the best punchers in the world, and you were hanging right there with them. That's gotta be a pretty badass feeling.
Yeah, no, it does. It's just like, especially when finished, I remember like a sense of relief almost of being like, finally, I'd had a few chances that year where I was in big situations and I really feel like I had the legs to make it happen. But whether, a puncture or a crash or just, you know, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And I mean, I'm sure you guys know that feeling of finishing a race and you're like, damn, if that one corner I made this group, or if did this one thing differently, like, I could have been getting a crazy result. Like, I think that year in Liège, I was in the group sprinting for third, and I was 21st. And I was just like, I got completely boxed in. And like, could have been third in Liège, and on paper, I had no result. And I was just kicking myself for days of like, reliving the sprint. And, if I'd gone left and hadn't gotten boxed in, all this, it could have been completely different. But when everything actually goes perfectly in a race and you can really look back and say, like, I prepared super well and I did everything I could. And it just, I was fourth and that was my best result. And, I'm really happy with it. That's a super good feeling.
Yeah. And then also to be like, for me personally, I never do my career best like numbers in a race. For some reason, I just it never happens. I'm better in training scenarios than in a race. But you, I imagine in this race on that last climb, you definitely shattered some power numbers. Do you have any of these numbers that you can share with us, maybe?
Well, I do have the file ready because Cole asked me to
There we
pull it
go.
up.
There we
Yeah,
go.
there you
So
go.
are we talking about the Jezebel or is it the climb after?
So it's the Jazz Cabell is the third to last climb. So that's like where the start of the race, basically. I mean, that's where everyone knows that's the first real stressful point of like, okay, you got to be in position. Maybe, maybe there's like 70 guys left after Jazz Cabell. Like a lot of guys get dropped, but it's still a pretty big group. So
Oh,
Jazz Cabell was
San
the third.
Sebastian it's changed since my day. 70 guys after the Jezebel?
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Wow.
it's like big fight into the bottom. And the climb's hard, but like there's that kind of flatter part in the middle and then the last drag up to the top. But where it really splits is the descent because then everyone fights for position into the descent. And every time it's like a 8K twisty descent. And then you take this right hander onto a big highway at the bottom and it's just single file. And if you're more than like 15 wheels back, you have to do like a 5 minute massive effort and then you go straight into the next climb, which nowadays is like where the race really, really kicks off.
Levi, you were probably so far up in the bunch you didn't realize how many guys were on the.
No, I don't think we did. We did maybe one climb after Jazkabel, maybe. But the Jazkabel was where it really happened. Like I actually had a great day there once. I helped my teammate Davide Rebelin win, and I led up the Jazkabel, and there was like 8 guys left. So it's different nowadays.
Kevin's pulling up this Training Peaks file. Let's see these numbers, boy.
Jezebel was, so that was like, that's still like 50K to go in this year's
Oh,
race.
yeah,
And
no.
I did 386 for 16 minutes. So it's pretty hard, but, um, it's hard, but it wasn't crazy hard. And then like just talking to how everything went perfectly. Like this was one of those, I think I was like fourth wheel on the descent and we just came around this corner at the bottom. I remember looking back and like already being in the wheel, just freewheeling and just seeing guys like sprinting and you see guys like this one switch back up still and you just know like, okay, I'm saving so much energy right now. So even then, like 50K to go, it's one of those just reassurances of like, okay, I'm on a good one today.
So
Yeah.
380. What do you weigh, Kevin? Or what did you weigh then?
I was 66 kilos
Okay.
this morning.
So that's not terribly hard of an effort.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's obviously fast, but
yeah. So was really just about the positioning.
That's hard.
yeah.
Sounds hard to me.
Well, I mean, like
386 at
he'd
66.
be
That's
doing over 16 minutes. He'd be doing over 400 if it was like flat out, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
man. For
the
sure.
whole, the whole race was 6 hours, 5:56. I normalized 3:19. It's 5,500 kJs. So then basically after after Jezebel, we did like a roughly 10-minute climb. I think it was like 12 minutes. But this one is crazy steep. I think it's like 3K at 12% or 3.5K at 12%. This is this is where the race really explodes now. Usually there's a super select group at the top, and then you have a longer kind of 25K descent and valley, and then you do one like ridiculous fast climb that's 2K at like 18% or something. Um, so I did in the file, I did my second all-time best 10-minute on the second to last climb, and then my second all-time best 5-minute on the last climb.
Dude.
Yeah, and that was after 5,000 kJs. So it definitely, that was one of my better days on a bike.
So what were
Tell me, tell
those
me what
10
these
minutes
10
and 5
minutes and
minutes?
5 minutes
Yeah.
were. Come on.
Let's see. The 10 minutes I did 4:37, and my 12-minute was 4:35. So it was basically a 12-minute effort. And then on the last climb, I did 5 minutes at 4:97.
Dude. Wow.
Yeah.
And this
I don't
like
think I ever did that. I never did
and
5 minutes
this
at
was like
500 watts.
this was 5 minutes at 400 watts or 500 watts. And then like the last 30 seconds of this climb where Alaphilippe and Hershey, like Alaphilippe just did this like crazy attack. When you see it on TV, he just like sprints for 15 seconds. And I mean, I was on a day where my legs felt crazy good, but I just couldn't like get up to speed, like he accelerated over the top and I just couldn't follow. But yeah, I mean the number, like that was those are good numbers for me. Like if I'm doing that after 5,500 kilojoules, like that's there's not much more I can do. So I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be kicking myself too hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
that's
Those are
incredible.
some really good numbers.
Yeah. Are
And it was
you
also, it says on according to the file, it was 35 degrees Celsius this day, which I remember was super
Whoa.
hot too.
Yeah.
But I'd actually done the whole, I can't remember if we rode that summer, Levi, but I was in Tahoe that year in July, and I was training at altitude, like, I don't know how hot it was getting then, but training at
Well,
heat
it's
in
really
Tahoe.
hot when you're wearing a rain jacket and a balaclava and it's
Oh yeah, this year I was
yeah.
doing serious heat, or last year I guess I was doing serious heat
Yeah.
training too.
Yeah, I
I think I
Because
remember
it
that.
remember
wasn't,
this ride
last
that
year
you
it
did.
wasn't as hot as the previous year. I remember.
You did like some 7-hour crazy ride from Truckee where you went out and did Monitor Pass, or you went over to like where Ebbets is, and then you went down and came up Kingsbury. You did like some crazy 8-hour shift or something.
Yeah, this was so with the coach I had then. I was doing a lot of like long, super easy rides, like just 7 hours, and you know, not crazy power, but just especially at altitude, like really. And the thing at altitude is that your speed, the speed is so much higher than at sea level. So I remember just doing like 220, 230K days. And it wasn't like a crazy, massive TSS day, but just, it feels good, when you finish a ride and you see like 2 something on the Wahoo. It's pretty good for
Yeah.
the morale.
Yeah, I think you did 250K that day. I literally was this file popped up on my Strava the other day that you did. I was looking at some segments or something, and you did some crazy ride. It was unreal.
So
Are you
I have some questions if before we like run out of time, if
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah. So what I'm interested in is like Kevin, now you're on unarguably the number one team in the world, UAE, with unarguably the number one rider currently, arguably the best ever. The budgets of these teams are massive now compared to when I raced. I was on teams that were the best in some moments, with Alberto Contador and Lance. Like, we won all the Grand Tours and we would dominate some stage races. Never, I don't think we were ever as dominant as your team now. And I'm curious about, what's it like on these teams now, like UAE, where the budget's so big? Like, what kind of staff do you have around you? What happens at the races? Like, you go to training camp, like, are you getting like these super in detailed bike fits and like body, um, you know, measurements about flexibility or weight, or like, they test your
Access games.
metabolism, like they dial in your nutrition. Like, that's what I'm curious about how the sport has evolved on these like the big super teams.
No,
I
it's a
mean,
good
it's an
question.
open-ended question, but maybe we could just start discussing it and I'll come up with some
Yeah.
follow-up.
No, I mean, you obviously have these maybe 4 or 5 teams nowadays which have, substantially a larger budget than the rest of the World Tour teams. And I mean, for me personally, going from 5 years on DSM, which, you know, was a good team doing the best with the budget that they have, trying to make every dollar count. But, um, when you go from a team that's ranked 18th out of 18 in the World Tour teams to the number one ranked team, it's definitely a big shock. And the staff, even just having a cook at all the races, like even in like December training camp, for example, like everyone has their own room. You get a massage every day. Like the mechanic, there's like a mechanic for every 4 riders, I think, in December camp. And, this was like compared to DSM, it was like maybe one or two, maybe one massage in December camp and then, you know, 2 or 3 mechanics. So, they just wash your bike on the rest day. And small things like that where you really notice, oh, having 3 extra soigneurs or 2 extra mechanics or a cook in the first place, those things do make a big difference in terms of making your life easier and feeling more professional. Um, and then along with the bigger budget, there obviously becomes, more equipment, better equipment, more attention to detail. But I think honestly, the biggest difference I've noticed, and everyone else is always saying like how and why is UAE so good, is just the confidence of the riders and the team and the atmosphere that the team has. Like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Action, but when I joined Action, it was the best under 23 team in the world. And my first training camp, I was riding with the under 23 world champion and the baby Giro winner, and that just became my normal from the get go. And I didn't know anything different. And going from a team where like, everyone got on well and the environment was really good, but just on a sporting and professional level, like, we weren't good. Like, on my previous team, my first 5 years in the World Tour, we'd go to World Tour races and it's like, you know, hopefully you can have a good day. Maybe you can be in the early break and get a top 10 or something, and it's like, or you're riding for a GC winner or rider who, maybe he can get a top 10 or a top 5, or maybe we can get a podium if everything goes perfectly. But when you go from an environment like that, where you're trying to buy into something, but everyone kind of knows deep down, like, we're just not good enough. And then you go to an environment where, because of budget, okay, for sure, you can buy the best riders and the team quality is going to be better. But the most important thing for me is just how, when that confidence is shared by everybody, it doesn't matter how good you are, you get an extra 10% because not only is it expected of you, it makes you believe it yourself more, like, I see Tade and Adam Yates, like they're sitting next to me on the bus and it's like, we're not trying for the podium. We're trying to win the race. And it's like, just that like kind of, oh shit moment of seeing these guys doing their thing and realizing that they're 100% confident in me to do my job. It just makes, it gives me so much more belief to go out there and just not have any doubt in my mind that I can do the job I need for the team, or that I can win this race or be here when they need me. Like, it's just a shared atmosphere that's completely different.
Yeah, so like for example, you just did Romandy with Tade, for example. I'm just gonna use this race as my question. Like you are there, you're not racing for yourself, but do you see yourself like, you're on the front for however many kilometers it is, or you're setting pace on a key climb. Are you seeing in yourself something that you didn't think you could do, even though it's not your own personal result?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Romany is a good example because the week before I was like deathly sick. I mean, long story short, like I had a doping control on like the Monday morning, like a week before the race started. And these two doping chaperones that came, they were like coughing, sneezing. I think they had this like hantavirus that's going around. They were crazy sick. And anyway, they test me, and that night, like sure enough, that night I feel my throat. Next morning I wake up, I'm sick. And this was like 4 or 5 days before Romandy. I was taking 3 days off the bike and then trying to restart training. And it's always a fine line in cycling between like, you want to tell the team you're sick, but you don't want them to just pull you off the race and maybe you get better tomorrow. You don't know how you're going to feel. But then at the same time, you're like, I'm going to go do Romandy with Tade and I need to do my job. And I'm being sitting on the couch for 3 days not riding. So, I was definitely nervous and like feeling the pressure of, can I do my job, during the week? And, I didn't get better during the week. I definitely felt sick the whole time, but it was just this like, usually I would be more of like a climbing domestique for Tade, especially in a race like Romandy. Um, but I felt terrible. Like the whole week, I just felt so bad. And my perspective changed from like, okay, I know I'm not at my normal level. I can't help him on the climbs, but what can I like, you know, I just had this like motivation to contribute way more than I would have if I had gone to this race last year with DSM in the state that I was being sick, I would have DNF probably on stage 2, because I know there was no point in being there. I was going to get dropped and then I was going to just, what's the point? But when you're there with Tade and it's okay, we start on this crazy climb, but if I can survive the climb, then it's going to be rolling for 100K and there I can pull, I know I can do something. Um, and then you suffer like a dog on this first climb, you make it over. And then you start pulling, and then suddenly, you're like, fuck, I'm pulling like Tade's on the wheel, especially in Romandy, Swiss roads, it's like left, right, up, down, left, right. And then you start to realize like, holy shit, I don't feel good. But like, if I spring out of this corner, it's a single file bunch. And the guy at the back, he's like getting flicked. And then it became this thing because
Yeah.
after the second or third day, like there was a few guys in the media that were like, oh, the motos this race are just, the motors are sitting right in front of the bunch. And I was like, motherfucker, I pulled all day and I can tell you for a fact there was no moto. And then, it was just seeing that interview where I was like, damn, like guys are suffering behind. And I was pulling, I felt terrible, but knowing that guys were suffering in the wheel, it just suddenly flipped for me. And I was like, okay, normally I wouldn't be pulling on the flat for 100K like this, but tomorrow, like I can't wait to pull on the flat for 100K. And like every corner, I'm going to just sprint like a madman out of the corner and just like using all these tricks of being on the front where, like, okay, I'll just accelerate here, back off a bit here. It's actually not that hard, like maybe I'm just doing a steady, like 350 watts for, I don't know how long, but at the back, you're just, if you're doing 50K an hour on the front, at the back, they're like sprinting 60K an hour to get back in the wheel. And then they're doing like 45 coasting and then they're sprinting and then they're coasting. And it just feels like 10 times harder. And I know because the last 5 years I was a team that was, 180th wheel and I was sprinting thinking, damn, there's gotta be a
They're
moto
on
up
the
there.
moto. Yeah.
Rationalize this to myself. But then sure enough, like you're in the front and you have the world champion on your wheel and it's like, you just suddenly it becomes so much easier, even though you're doing the same exact thing as before.
And dude, you say you weren't feeling well, but that motivation must have been strong because you were telling me that you did like 2 hours at 350 or something, and at your weight, that's incredible on the flat. So you were moving pretty fast. So for being sick and doing that effort, that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I definitely got more out of myself because of the team I was on, just because I had a job to do, and so I felt the pressure to perform and do that. But even like this last day I've had some bad. This was like top 5 worst days on the bike for me this last day because from the get go, like we started pulling and I was just in the wheel. I almost couldn't hold the wheel. Like I was just excited to get to the front so I could go a little bit easier and do my own pace. Yeah, it was brutal. I suffered like a dog the whole week in Romandy. I don't think I've ever in a week long race suffered that much.
Well, I mean, you must be proud to be where you are in this moment. Like, we're witnessing history with your team and with Tade, and for you to be a part of that, I mean, it's something that that's a lifelong or lifetime experience that not many people get to have. So, um, just it's awesome to be able to watch and cheer for an American in that position, and yeah, you should definitely be very proud of yourself.
I am very grateful and just aware of how privilege of a position it is being, because we live in an age where realistically there's like two guys that can win the tour. And maybe now with Paul's this new French kid, Paul, there's three, but like, everyone goes to the tour and it's like Tade and Jonas, that's who's gonna win this year. Um, and just having the chance to be a part of that is pretty incredible. And it was obviously one of the reasons I wanted to come to this team, but to see it up front and just see, especially with Tade, what a champion he is and get to know him personally, it's been, yeah, just surreal. Like I'll definitely, when post career, when I retire and can look back and, just see the memories that have been made and say I was a part of it. That's pretty cool.
What's next for you?
I have Dauphiné next. So I, dug myself a deep grave after Romandy with this week of sick racing. So I had to take like a full break afterwards, and then I restarted training now. So I have, I think about a month. Dauphiné starts on June 7th. So I've got a good 4 or 5 weeks of training to get back in shape. And then yeah, Dauphiné and Nationals the weekend after. So it's I'll be back racing with Cole.
Kevin and I head to head. I don't know
I,
how
I
head to
I
head.
was thinking today, like Modern Adventures got so many guys. Like, come on, Cole. I need a teammate there. We're gonna be a little outnumbered, so I'll poach Cole off of his team.
Yeah, yeah. You wish, buddy.
But what about any plans to come to Tahoe and train with us?
Not this year, unfortunately, but I'm always looking for a chance to get back, especially in July. I love to do a camp there. I was thinking about maybe coming back now, but I don't know if I'm just getting old or what. But the travel, like thinking about the international travel, I'm just, oh man, it breaks me. It's like harder than
Yeah,
any training session. So
yeah,
I don't think I'm going to get back this year, but I definitely am always looking for a chance because I mean the training in Tahoe and Truckee and around that area, it's just insane.
Try and get a little PJ sponsor, pull a Matthew Vanderpool card.
I might need a few good, might need a few big results to
yeah.
get that one secured, but you never know.
You gonna do
Hopefully,
San Sebastian this year?
I am. Yep, I'll do San
Hey,
Sebastian.
well, hey,
Uh,
you never know what could happen there.
yeah, I think even to win at San Sebastian is probably not going to get you a intercontinental partnership, but we'll see. You never know.
All right, Kev. Well, I'm really happy and proud for you, man.
Yeah, I feel
Thank
like
you.
we could keep going, but we should probably
Yeah, I don't want to
let
keep
him
you too
go, let him
long.
off the hook. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining
Sure.
us, Kevin. It's been a
thanks,
treat.
Yeah,
Kev.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, it's exciting to see the podcast growing. So I'll
Yeah.
be following along.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Ben.
See ya.